Hello, Ginny.
Hi, Judy.
Glad to see you today, and I'm very happy to have this chance to interview you. I'm with Ginny Pearce, who is a local food advocate and a member of the Hamilton Community Permaculture Lab, and I'm Judy Chapala with the Loft Realty. So, Ginny, tell us, please, if you would, how long have you been interested in seed gardening, and how did your interest begin?
Well, I began gardening and really seriously growing food about 15 years ago. And really my interest began when I was able to slow my life down a little bit and start looking around at nature and really appreciating good food and nutritious food and how it is healthy for us, for the planet, and for our community. So in the last 10 years, I started seeing how the connections between seeds and sustainable or regenerative gardening work. So you're not always off to the garden store and buying plants and buying seeds from them, but when you look out in nature, creation has provided the seeds for us all the time. So it's a matter of learning how to use them. So,
Yeah.
I've been at it a while and I've evolved with it, and it has benefited my tummy and my family's tummies and the greater part of creation, I think, by doing that.
Yes, very good, Jenny. Yeah, I do understand there's a bit of a language associated with seeds, words and phrases that I hadn't really heard of before. But with respect to the Community Permaculture Lab, which I interviewed Deborah Boyd and Cynthia Meyer recently, and I know you're part of the same group, could you just remind us very briefly what that is, and how do you incorporate the permaculture principles into seeds?
Sure. Well, permaculture, Deborah and Cynthia talked quite a bit about that in the previous interview, and so I'll just do the summary part. It's a way of life. It gives a direction and words to the ways that people live, based on three ethics, which are people care, earth care, and fair share. And then from those central three ethics, spin off, I like to think of it as a circle with a spin, 12 principles for living. And it's not just in gardening or in the backyard, but it's in the front yard. It's in how we work, how we think, how we make a decision to buy a car or not to drive a car, or how we treat our peers, or accept and give feedback. So since we're talking about seeds and gardening today, I thought, oh my, it's just amazing how the principles, how they work. So one of the first principles that we talk about is observing and interacting. And that's really how I began to be a seed saver, because I observed that if you don't pick all the yellow beans and you let some of them stay on the plant, in fact, at the end of the season, you end up with yellow bean seeds. And there's the seeds inside. And so you could be set for the next season without having to go to the seed store. So the natural world, that's what permaculture is about, is looking at the natural world and seeing how we can work with nature. So I made this observation, and now I can interact and use that in my garden. We're not supposed to produce waste. That's another principle. And so if I had just let this drop into the ground and not cared for it, I wouldn't have those seeds. But I did care for them. And so now I have a third principle, which is to obtain a yield, so I can have yellow beans to eat for the table, and I can also have yellow seeds for next year, and I can have dry seeds to keep for the winter. So I can just right there have three principles, and we're supposed to also integrate, not segregate, in permaculture. So lots of people grow a garden and they harvest, and they have seedlings, but if you want to take the seeds as well, you're integrating seed production with food production, and both of those things go together rather than going off to the seed store every spring. Catching and storing energy is another principle. I'm already up to 5 of the 12 of them. And so we're catching the energy in a seed. Like there's nothing like the potential of a seed. I mean, that's what we all come from. To put it, to get right back to it, right? We all come from a seed. And the diversity in the garden. So when I plant about 14 to 16 different kinds of tomatoes, and then I really think one is yummy. So then I can begin to pick those different seeds, share them with my friends. They'll swap other ones back, and we have more diversity in things to plant because we have valued that diversity and then shared it with each other. So that's just half of them.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. It really is. Like you say, you incorporate all those principles into seed gardening, which is really back to basics, isn't it? As you say,
Yep.
talk about working with nature. It doesn't get any more natural than that. So other than your beans, for example, where do you get most of your seeds?
Okay, so since we're talking about saving seeds, your best source of seeds and your best source of food, as I would say, is always the local one. So the most local seed source you have is your own garden. So again, I used to go to the seed store and I might spend, $100, $150 on seeds. But now in my own garden, I have this. And you think, and what is that? This is lettuce seed.
Oh, wow.
Do you believe it?
No.
So if you let your lettuce, people say, oh, my lettuce bolted, it tastes bitter. Well, that's your seed in nature. All of us want to reproduce ourselves, right? That's what nature is all about. So the lettuce that has bolted is actually trying to send up a stalk with seed. And so then the little fluffy guys on top kind of looks like dandelions. See the foofy part? And then if you take that and you bring it apart, you end up with little black things, which I put on here. So little tiny black things, and that's a lettuce seed. So where do I get most of my seed? From my local garden.
Right.
There's my tomato seeds, a real favorite, very easy to do. You can grow your own garlic, and then you'll have your own garlic cloves for seed. Yeah. And then the next place is to swap with your friends. So you've grown your own seeds, you swap with your friends, and in Dundas, we're actually starting a new initiative. There will be like little seed libraries, like you see book libraries. Yeah. They're in other communities. Most communities have a seed library. The Hamilton community has a seed library in connection with Green Venture right now. So you can get a lot of free seeds, believe it or not, from these sources. I'd also like to mention, though, some really great resources. We have a first-class seed seller in Flamborough here called William Dam Seeds. They ship and import seeds from all over the world. So they are first class. There's nobody in Dundas who shouldn't have good seeds, with William Dam being right up the road. And a couple of local producers, Matchbox Seeds in Caledonia. She's a fantastic producer of seeds, Urban Harvest. So you can go on the web, you can look some up, but look in your own garden first, ask your neighbors, and go to your local seed library.
Sounds excellent. And I'll have your contact information afterwards so that people can call you to, because I don't know that anyone will have written down what you just said, but William Dam I've certainly heard of, but thanks for that, Ginny. Yeah. What about the actual methodology of, very, very quickly, of course, but how does it start from seed to seedling? What's the process there?
Okay, so you'll only have healthy seedlings. Okay, so the plants, people go to the store and buy your pepper plants and your tomato plants and maybe your lettuce plants, cabbage plants in the spring. Those are what we call seedlings. Like you say, there's a language, right? The seedlings are only as good and healthy as the seeds you plant and the soil you plant them in. So the soil is really important. And so if we start with our little tomato seed, and I know Judy has a resource that we put together for when and how you plant seeds in the winter, because it's a
Being
long
Deborah.
Yeah. Well, it's on the seed to seed video on the YouTube.
Okay,
Yeah. So maybe we can put that up after too.
sure.
So you take your seed, and what a seed needs to do to germinate. So like I said, a seed is a complete plant, and all it needs is moisture and soil and warmth. With those three things, bingo, it's going to sprout. And then how you keep that seedling, how you, what we call pot up, or maybe bring it from a small pot into a little bit bigger pot before it goes out to the garden, all depends on the different kinds of seeds you're growing, where you're going to plant them, and what season it is. So seed saving is a big thing in the fall. Cataloging, organizing, and planning happen in the winter, and then late winter and spring is when you start your seeds. For instance, a tomato seed you start inside, a bean seed you do not, and that's all on that little sheet. There's a fair bit to that, and there are quite a few really great workshops that people can take if they want to start their seeds in the winter. And so at the end, actually, I have a little resource list of different organizations that you could start up with, including our CPL.
Because I imagine there might be people who are interested but don't know where to start. So that's very helpful.
Yes.
And there's a question that I have, which I'm not sure if I'm alone or not, but with respect to lawn, I have a lawn. I'm sure a lot of us have lawns, and we're not quite sure why, but it's just what we do. So how do you get your lawn ready to be topsoil and a potential garden area?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions. So I'll tell you what I usually see people do. So you have a lawn, and then you take a string and you make a little shape or a big shape. One of our permaculture principles is to take slow, small steps. And I would encourage people who want to make a step to make a small one. So I talked to someone just yesterday, and we described a 3-foot by 6-foot little square, or 3-foot circle if you'd like. And there's a very good resource book that I'm going to tell you at the end that describes this method called the lasagna method. So there's really 6 steps. So the first step is you cut your lawn really short in that 6-foot by 3-foot part. So you cut it right down, but you don't cut the sod and roll it up and take it away the way they'll rent you a sod cutter at Home Depot. Don't do that. Because all of the natural biome and the great bacteria in the soil are right at the roots of that grass. So you want to maintain the root zone. So you cut it down nice and short, and then you put some sticky twiggies. I use things from my daylilies, some other compostable materials. You lay that on top. So you have your 6 by 3, you cut it all down, you could actually fork. So take a fork and stick it in so that some air gets in there, put your twiggies down. Number 3 is the cardboard or newspaper. 10 layers of cardboard or newspaper, lay that down. So you've got your lasagnas being built now, right? You got your short grass, your twiggy lilies, a bit of rough compost, things are aerated, put the cardboard down because you don't want the grass coming up. Okay, then some dry leaves, perfect time of year for dry leaves or dry grass from cutting the grass. And then you may have to invest depending on where you are. If you have a composter, that's when you use your compost. So you're going to put on 4 to 6 inches of compost, and then on top of that, 4 to 6 inches of topsoil. So you may have to do an input there if you don't have a composter in your backyard, but you can source those things from garden centers, and then you'll be ready for spring. For your
seedlings, for example, you could plant your seedlings in there.
Yeah, but you get that ready now. If you try and get that ready in the spring, it's too short a time. So soil preparation takes time.
Right. So
and then over the winter, the cardboard and all that will be broken down. You can put your shovel in the spring, put your tomato seedling, or whatever seedling in. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds very promising.
Start
Fantastic.
small.
Yeah, well, somebody said spare a square, right? You just, if
Yes.
you want to start
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For sure.
what about the harvest time? How do you, what do you have to say about harvest time and the great abundance to eat that you profit from with all your hard work?
Okay. So you have lovely prepared soil, you've got your seeds you've saved, you've started your seedlings according to the seedling timing chart, and then you plant things out. And oh, my favorite time. So August, September comes and we get to harvest things. So for instance, I like to harvest my garlic in July. So I've got all my garlic. So I have 85 bulbs of garlic. So I'm ready for the whole season. But in July, I take all the little cloves and peel them and pick my yellow beans and make dill beans. Have you ever had one of these in like a Caesar? Or, yeah. These are delicious. Taste better actually than dill pickles. My kids all love them. You can get your tomatoes, put them in your jars. Again, this is all canning, so we can do another talk on that another time. So canning is really important, and it's easy, really. The old methods with like boiling all the jars and all this, they've been refined in ways that are still very safe. And that's another thing that we did as a group in permaculture. We learned to can peaches and different things like that. I turned my dry beans. So see how beautiful these are?
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah. So these you grow like green beans. So you just plant out all the beans and then they dry. You pick them in the fall when they're nice and dry. And then I cook them up just a little bit and make a beautiful bean salad in a vinaigrette. And then that's good till all through the winter. You can pull that off the shelf.
Excellent.
No going to Costco for this house.
No.
Another one that a lot of people love, pesto and basil. So here's a little basil plant. You use this part, the pesto leaves, and your garlic and your parsley. To make your pesto, and then I put it in ice cube trays and I have that all in the freezer. And then you let some of them go brown and get older. And that's what the seed pod looks like in the back.
What's that seed pod?
This is the flower of the basil.
Oh, okay, okay.
It dries to the brown seed pod, and inside these little guys is the tiny little black seed of the basil plant. But I probably have, just from this, maybe 20 seeds. So I'll have 20 basil plants for next year.
Fantastic.
Just from that one little guy. Yeah, yeah. It's quite the obtaining a yield, as the permaculture people would say. So really, food is something that we all do 3 times a day. So if you want to make an environmental impact, lessen your footprint on the earth, if you can cook and live and eat simply in season. So there's no strawberries in the winter here unless they're from the freezer. Okay. Or raspberries or any of that stuff. There's none of those little clamshell things.
Your food bills must be quite a bit less than the rest of us.
Yes, but my food labor is considerable.
Yes, absolutely.
So I am retired, although I did about half as much when I was still working. But if you cook, grow, and respect nature by season, you'll be a healthier person, and so will the community around you.
Fantastic. Now, how do people who are interested get more information and knowledge and tap into what you've been talking about?
Okay, so a couple of things. So there's some local resources. So Judy, are you familiar with Green Venture?
No.
Okay, so Green Venture and Environment Hamilton are both local Hamilton resources. So Green Venture and Environment Hamilton. So Green Venture does little get-togethers. They have camps for kids. You can learn about growing through them. Actually, I did a couple things for them last year. And they've been around a long time, nonprofit organizations. I mean, there's lots of courses you can take too, but these guys are nonprofit, wonderful organizations. The Community Permaculture Lab, we have a Facebook page you can go on and look, but as Deborah said, we're really looking for someone to help us with organizing our information. There's a couple of good resources on there, and we'll have some more in the spring. So follow our Facebook and look on the calendar.
Would that be the Community Permaculture Lab?
Permaculture Lab, yeah. This book, so this is a Canadian organization, Seeds of Diversity Canada. So this book, and everything I'm saying is also on our CPL website. It's all on our Zooms. This is how I learned about seeds. So Seeds of Diversity Canada is helping to secure food resiliency in Canada for the future. They've been around a long time. Also, another nonprofit, excellent organization. You can get this book from them for, I think it's like $10. It's available on the website. So if you have this book and this book, The Organic Backyard. So those two books, and come to a CPL workshop and you can get started too.
Oh, that's great.
Those are really foundation. So when I'm teaching or helping, or we do anything from CPL, we're always saying, oh, it's on page 23, it's on page 16, it's on page 10. Simple, simple, simple. You don't have to look at 100 YouTubes and get lost on the web. These are a couple of really simple resources. You know, start with your 3-foot by 6-foot or 3 pots. Get one simple book. Connect with your community. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my mentor, my sister Kathy. She's an organic grower, so I just spent time in the garden with her for about, now and again for about 10 years. There's some local farms, Manor Run, Plan B, all of them take interns, all of them do courses. Old 99 Farm. We have a very, very rich agricultural and organic and permaculture community around Hamilton. Sometimes it seems hard to navigate, but put your finger in the phone and reach out, and through some of those organizations. They're really helpful.
Well, Ginny, thank you so much. Your expertise and your knowledge, and you're just a wealth of information. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I will have maybe that chart that you were referring to, I'll have that at the end of the video as well, so that people can look at it, and all those resources that you mentioned.
The resources, sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good, Judy.
Fantastic, Wonderful. Jenny. Thank you so much.
Okay, take a step.
Bye for now. Bye. Bye-bye.